So, who is Sylvia? I am Sylvia. My first degree was a bachelor in psychology in 1996 at the University of Tübingen in Germany, but that wasn't enough. So I've done a master's in psychology in 2002, still not enough. So I did my PhD in 2006, also in psychology. I love to study, which is good news for you, because I want to help, through my research, everyone with chronic pain. In 2006, I was invited by Professor Siddle from the University of Sydney to collaborate in their chronic pain and brain investigation. So I moved from Germany to Australia. And in 2014, I moved my research lab to the University of New South Wales. And today, I'm so lucky. I'm the head of the pain imaging laboratory at the University of New South Wales and a senior neuroscientist and psychologist at NeuRA. I'm doing this work now for over 20 years, and I'm passionate to help people who suffer from chronic pain. Even though I'm legally an Australian citizen, I will never sound like one. So hopefully, you have now adjusted to my German English, and now let's get started with pain and the brain. I'm pretty sure every one of you has experienced acute pain in some stage in your life, and we normally anticipate pain as a consequence of acute illness, injury, and surgery, and we would expect that acute pain would heal. But in many of us, actually, acute pain doesn't heal. It stays for many weeks, many years, and becomes chronic in its nature. And commonly, we label acute pain with an onset of 3 months, and when acute pain doesn't go away, and it still persists over 3 months, we label it as chronic pain. And chronic pain is widespread in Australia. 1 in 5 adults suffers from chronic pain in Australia. And this is a really high statistics. So before I talk about chronic pain, I would like you to understand why we feel acute pain. So for example, you burn your hand in hot water, and then the pain information gets forwarded to your spinal cord and then to your brain. And the brain processes pain. So we feel pain because the information gets forwarded from the injured hand to the spinal cord and then to the brain. And in the brain gives you then the experience of acute pain. So acute pain acts like an important warning system. It's alerting us from tissue damage, and it's motivating us to change our behavior. So for example, when you have burned your hand in hot water, then you would have learned the next time when you cook, you would be careful. In contrast, chronic pain doesn't serve any useful purpose. And also, what we need to understand is that every chronic pain was initially acute pain. So for example, one of my clients, she had an infected tooth, and this was very, very painful. So she went to the dentist, got the tooth removed, and thought, okay, now my pain will heal. And this was actually not the case. So my client, she's now suffering since 2 years from chronic facial pain. And she describes her pain as a burning ongoing pain in her face. So why has the pain not gone away even though the injury has healed? And this is exactly where my research starts. I would like to understand why acute pain becomes chronic. What is driving the transition from acute to chronic pain? Is there a pain center in our body or in our brain? And where would we actually look for such a pain generator? Would we look in our body where we feel the pain? So that would be, in the case of my client, the face. Or would we look in the brain, which processes pain? And this was exactly the question which I've asked myself 10 years ago when I came to Australia. Where should I look for such a brain generator, in the brain or our body? And there are really interesting cases which shows that you can develop chronic pain without any injury to your body, only with an injury to your brain. And what we know is that people who suffered a stroke can actually develop chronic pain. These people who have developed chronic pain after a stroke suffer their stroke in exactly this area. And the name of this area is thalamus and lies in the middle of the brain. So these people have developed chronic pain without any injury to their body, only an injury to their brain. So 10 years ago, I thought I wanted to research whether I could detect exactly the same brain changes in people who have developed chronic pain after peripheral injuries. For example, in the case of my client, after she developed chronic pain after tooth extraction in the thalamus. So could the thalamus actually be responsible for chronic pain? Could the thalamus be the region in the brain which is driving the transition from acute to chronic pain? And to look at this research question, I recruited a group of people who have developed chronic facial pain. And these people develop chronic facial pain after tooth extraction, after root canal work, and they're describing their pain as an ongoing burning, sharp feeling in their face. And many of them actually describe it that they feel somebody's putting a knife into their cheek. So it's very traumatic, and this is ongoing. And it's an awful experience, which is for them every day. And a way to look at anatomical changes in your brain is to do an MRI. So you lie on an MRI bed, and your head is fixated in a special coil. And what you get from the special coil is anatomical images. So I've scanned the brain of 30 people who have developed chronic facial pain. And what you actually get is such a picture. And this is actually my head, yeah? So it's a slice through the middle of my head, and you can see here, this is my tongue, this is the spinal cord, here you can see my nose. And so the area we are interested is the thalamus, which I said to you before, lies in the middle of the brain. So let's talk about the results. So what we found is a decrease in volume in the thalamus. Let me explain that with a little bit simpler image with my brain. Yeah. So what we found is that the thalamus has shrunk in volume, got smaller. So what does this actually mean, that the thalamus has shrunk in its size? And how can this explain why people can't get rid of their pain? So how can this shrinkage drive the transition from acute to chronic pain? And to understand this meaning, I've asked all my participants to come back and do another MRI scan. And this time I've used a technique which is called spectroscopy, and which looks at changes in neurotransmitters in the brain. And our results are very, very interesting. So what we found, you can see, this is here actually on this diagram, we found a decrease in the neurotransmitter GABA in the thalamus. So GABA is the main inhibitory neurotransmitter in the central nervous system. So GABA dampens down brain activity. Let me explain that now again with more simple words. So the thalamus acts like a boom gate in our brain. So this means when we feel acute pain, so for example you put your hand in hot water, then the pain information gets forwarded to your spinal cord, and then it gets forwarded through the thalamus. So the boom gate is opening when we feel acute pain, through the thalamus to higher areas of our brain, which gives us the experience of pain. And when our hand has healed, and then the boom gate is closing, and we don't feel acute pain anymore. In people with chronic pain, the engine of this boom gate is not anymore working. It's no longer working. And the engine is not anymore working because petrol is missing. And GABA acts like petrol in our brain. When we have enough petrol, enough GABA, then the boom gate can close. So what we found is that people with chronic pain, they have a decrease in GABA, which means this boom gate is continuously open. And somatosensory signals, every touch, every movement is felt like pain, gets amplified. And this continuously open boom gate gives us the ongoing experience of chronic pain. So what we need to do is we need to find new solutions to close these boom gates, to increase GABA so that the boom gate has petrol to close. Before I talk about our new therapies we are developing at the moment, I would like to talk about chronic pain and mental health, because chronic pain impacts mental health dramatically. So I've talked the last 10 minutes about only one dimension of chronic pain, and that's the quality and location. So for example, in the case of my client, the location would be her face, the quality would be an ongoing burning pain. But the experience of pain is so much more. It's so much more than only a burning, hot feeling. It affects our emotions, our thoughts, and our social life. So, for example, in the case of my client who developed chronic facial pain after tooth extraction, she's also suffering from anxiety and depression. And we know that over 50% of people with chronic pain actually develop anxiety and depression after the onset of pain. And she said to me that she can't enjoy life anymore. She used to be a very active woman, go out, and now she stays home. And she worries. She worries all the time, and she worries when other people don't worry. And she actually told me she was in a situation where she didn't want to live anymore. An alarming 20% of people in Australia consider suicide as a result of their chronic pain. So chronic pain impacts mental health dramatically. And the question is here, why do people with chronic pain also develop mental health problems, such as anxiety and depression? Could GABA play also a role in this? Is the brain, could also be changes in the brain actually responsible for this? So it does. GABA plays a role in this. And what our research showed, we found a decrease in GABA. What you can see here, this diagram, yes, we found a decrease in GABA in people with chronic pain in the medial prefrontal cortex. The medial prefrontal cortex is a very, very interesting area because this is the area which processes our emotion and our thoughts. And it lies directly behind our forehead. So what does this mean that there is a decrease in GABA in the medial prefrontal cortex? So what I said to you before, that GABA is the main inhibitory neurotransmitter in the central nervous system. So this neurotransmitter dampens down our activity. So when we have a lack of it, this means our brain is overactive. Neurons are firing all the time. There's an overactivity in our brain. So this part, the medial prefrontal cortex, has lost its ability to dampen down our fears, our worries. So in the case of my client, it is very difficult for her if you would simply say, oh, don't think anymore about your worries. Yeah, it will diminish without it. This is not so simple because the brain has changed. The decreasing GABA is responsible that people develop mental health problems, resulting then in anxiety and depression disorders. And this is because the brain is active all the time, and the brain can't anymore dampen down any worries and any fears. And moreover, our research actually showed that people with chronic pain change their personality, and this is a result of structural, functional, and biochemical changes in the prefrontal cortex. So the question is now, how can we dampen down this overactivity in the brain, particularly in the thalamus and the medial prefrontal cortex? We know that the most powerful drugs only decrease pain approximately 30%, and they are associated with so many side effects, for example, kidney damage, liver damage, nausea, vomiting, that a lot of my clients actually can't take them anymore. So how can we dampen down this overactivity in the brain? And we have developed a new approach of EEG neuromodulation, which targets this overactivity in the brain, which decreases the overactivity, which increases GABA and gives the boom gate, or increases the petrol, so that the boom gate has petrol to close. So how is our new therapy actually working? So what we are doing, we are placing an EEG cap on the head of our participants, and this EEG cap is measuring electrical activity. And the electrical activity can be watched by our participants in real time on a computer screen. And we teach our participants to dampen down the heightened brain activity via neuromodulation in a way that reduces their pain, their anxiety, and their worries. We will start soon with our new trial, and if you suffer from chronic pain or you know somebody who is suffering from chronic pain, then please write us an email under pain@neura.edu.au. So can you do yourself something to decrease this overactivity? And yes, you can do something. So here a few advices from me. So the first one is, don't focus on your pain, your negative thoughts, and your worries. Because what we know is the more you focus, the more your brain is active. However, also don't suppress upcoming negative feelings and thoughts. Because we also know the more you suppress upcoming negative thoughts and feelings, the more they get actually stronger in our mind. And I always tell my clients this little example. So I say to them, if I tell you, don't think about a black cat. 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 You actually imagine a black cat. And this shows us that we can only heal when we process upcoming feelings and thoughts. When we suppress them, we can't heal. Give yourself a rest with breathing exercise. So focus your attention towards your breath and slowly breathe in and breathe out. And this little exercise can give you a rest, can give your brain a rest. You can do that exercise a few times per day. But sometimes small things can actually break vicious cycles. So it's important that we acknowledge that we need to do something against this overactivity of the brain. And something else is that change the relationship towards your negative thoughts and feelings, because it is actually not the negative feelings and your thoughts which makes us unhappy. It is actually the relationship to them. So try to live in the moment, and we call it's the being mode. And in this mode, we treat upcoming negative thoughts and feelings as passing messengers like smells and sounds. And a lot of people with chronic pain, they actually live in the doing mode. And in this mode, they feel the need to react to upcoming feelings and thoughts. And this is not a healthy mode, because in this mode, our brain is always active. So try to live in the mode which is healthy, and this is the being mode. And in this mode, you treat upcoming negative emotions and thoughts like passing messages. You acknowledge them and then you let them go. And this relaxes your brain. I would like to finish with a picture of all the hardworking people in NeuRA who are working constantly on developing new solutions for the many people who suffer from chronic pain. And I want to say, don't give up hope, because we are always working hard on new solutions, which will lighten your way. Thank you for your audience.